I don't tell people where I work anymore, not because I'm ashamed I've been a groundskeeper my whole life, but because people can't help themselves. They start with the jokes, then the questions, then the dares, and Black Hollow Cemetery isn't a place you dare someone to visit. Winter of 2017, I took over the night caretaker job after old Jim Hanlon died in his sleep. Black Hollow sits 3 miles outside of Brattleboro, Vermont. Down a road most GPS apps can't find. The whole property is ringed by pines so dense the wind sounds like whispers, and in winter the snow piles so high you can't tell where the ground ends and the graves begin. My job was simple: lock the gates at sundown, patrol the grounds twice before midnight, and make sure the chapel's heater stayed on low so the pipes didn't burst. That was it. No tourists in winter, no funerals after dark, just me. A thermos of coffee and the crunch of my boots in the snow. The first night, I walked the southern edge of the property, the oldest section, and stopped at a row of headstones so worn they were just slabs of stone. I don't know why, but I knocked on one, 3 light taps, and something knocked back. It wasn't an echo. Echoes don't make the hair on your neck stand straight up. Echoes don't happen 3 seconds late from under the ground. I told myself it was the wind shifting the ice in the soil, but when I came back the next night, the same thing happened. 3 taps down there waiting for me to answer. That's when I found the folded paper in my jacket pocket. I hadn't put it there. No one else had been near me. The handwriting was jagged, like it had been carved into the paper with something sharp. It said, "Follow the rules if you want to keep breathing." And underneath, 7 rules. I don't tell people where I work anymore, not because I'm ashamed I've cut grass and fixed fences my whole life, but because cemeteries turn adults into 7th graders. They grin, they whisper, they ask if I've seen anything. They don't understand that Black Hollow Cemetery isn't a campfire story. It's a place that keeps its dead like a jealous dog keeps a bone. Winter of 2017. I took over the night caretaker job after old Jim Hanlon died in his recliner with the TV on. Black Hollow sits 3 miles down County Road 7 outside Brattleboro, Vermont, far enough that the town glow doesn't reach it. Pines crowd the fence line, loaded with snow that squeals when the wind moves through the needles. At night, the cold has teeth. Your breath falls out of you and just hangs there like something that doesn't want to leave. My duties were simple: lock the chain on the main gate at sundown, walk the grounds at 10 and again at midnight, then keep an eye on the chapel boiler so the radiators didn't burst. No burials after dark, no visitors after hours. Just me, a thermos of burnt coffee, and the crunch of boots over snow-packed gravel. My first night, I cut across the old section headstones so weathered they are more suggestion than stone. A whisper of curiosity nipped me, stupid and small. I rapped 3 knuckles on the nearest slab like it was a door. Something knocked back. Not echo. Echoes don't arrive late, and they don't come from under frozen ground. These knocks rose up through soil that had slept 100 winters, slow and patient and certain. I told myself it was ice shifting, a fox under the crust, anything but what it was. When I reached the office, my jacket had a folded paper in the pocket I know I didn't put there. The paper was stiff with cold handwriting carved into it like someone used a nail instead of a pen. Follow the rules if you want to keep breathing. Underneath, 7 rules. The last line was a warning written darker than the rest. Don't be clever. Clever people die here. I believed in boiler pressures and blade sharpening angles. That night I started believing in other things. The rules looked like this. 1. Don't answer knocks after midnight. If they knock 3 times, you let them have the last word. 2. Keep the chapel TV on channel 7 with the volume at 12. If it changes on its own, face the screen and say, "Not tonight." 3. Never call anyone by name between 3:00 and 3:13 a.m. Names are handles, something will use them to pull. 4. If you see lantern light beyond the north fence, look down. If you meet those eyes, you'll walk until your feet stop being yours. 5. Return the ledger to the bottom drawer before 2:00 a.m., the dead hate being misfiled. 6. If you hear your voice outside the office door, don't open it. It will beg. It will remind you of things no one knows. 7. At dawn, wait until sunlight touches the far gas pump across County Road 7. The clock will lie. The top corner of the page was stamped with Coffee Jim's trademark and a smear of something the color of dried rust that I didn't want to identify. The last line scrawled on the back was "Glassin' the gut simple. If you break a rule, it costs you something you can't buy back." I thought of the obvious: fingers, toes, breath. But what do you call your mother's voice on the phone? The particular smell of your brother's jacket. The only memory that lets you sleep. The paper didn't say life. It said something. That first week the stakes introduced themselves like polite neighbors. I nearly said the plow guy's name at 3:05 when he called to say he'd be late. The landline went dead as if my almost utterance had sucked the line dry. Another night, the TV in the chapel hissed itself to channel 1 snow and static until I said, "Not tonight," and it obeyed like a trained dog. But it's the ledger that really explained what cost means. Black Hollow keeps a leather ledger so old it smells like wet pennies. Every burial is recorded in a crabbed hand, each plot described in measurements that read like spells. I took it to the office desk to cross-check a broken marker at 1:40 a.m., lost track of time fixing a loose radiator valve, and didn't get it back into the bottom drawer until 2:17 a.m. When I stood, the whole building leaned wrong. The office window showed snow falling upward. My breath fogged, then flowed to the ceiling and puddled like water. I heard a crowd shifting outside, the particular shuffle of gathered people who have forgotten how to wait quietly. From that night on, I knew the rules weren't superstition, they were fences, and the cost for breaking them wasn't just pain, it was the geometry of the world. On the 8th night, the cemetery got a visitor. County Road 7 was a glazed black ribbon, stars like nails in a plank. I spotted headlights far off, too far for the grade, and by the time a pickup rolled into the lot, its exhaust drifted sideways against no wind. The truck idled rough, like it was missing a cylinder, and the driver climbed out without cutting the engine. She couldn't have been more than 22. Red parka, hat with a pom-pom, boots still clean in a way that says nobody ever made you walk home. She held a grocery bag to her chest like a cat. "Are you the caretaker?" She called across the lot. The clock on my phone read 2:54 a.m., a few safe minutes before the naming window. I stepped out onto the porch and kept my hands visible. "We're closed after dark. I need to see a grave." Her voice held the brittle steadiness of someone who spent the evening not crying. "Just a minute, please. We open at 9. She took the porch steps like she belonged on them. Up close, I saw the bag contained candles and a spiral notebook, and the young confidence in her eyes had a little crack running through it. She said her name, clear as a bell. Rule 3 prickled the back of my neck. Names are handles. "I can't help you tonight," I said. "Come back in the morning." She shook her head and lifted the notebook like a passport. "It's my brother," she said. "He's here, row N, plot 42. I need to talk to him before 3. "The grounds are dangerous after dark," I said, which felt stupid and small in my own mouth. She smiled like I'd told a joke. "Everything is dangerous after dark." The clock ticked to 2:57 a.m. The ledger in my office, the one I now always returned on time, had a line for row N, plot 42. The name under it pressed against the inside of my head like a thumb on a bruise. Old habit said to be decent. New instinct said the rules weren't written for fun. The safest choice was to send her away. Then she pulled from her pocket a folded paper, twinned to mine, the same stock, the same nail-scratched hand. My rule sheet. She held it between 2 fingers. Jim left me a copy, she said. He told me where to find you. Jim Hanlon didn't have a daughter. He barely had a bank account. He'd also been dead since Thanksgiving. You knew Jim? I asked, careful not to use any names. She nodded, that crack in her confidence widening. He told me you'd listen. 2:59 a.m. if she said her brother's name at 3:00 a.m. This place would grab it and make a hook of it. We'll walk together, I said, and my gut went cold with what that meant. But no names, not yours, not his, and when I tell you to look at your boots, you look. She tucked the paper away and lifted the grocery bag like a torch. You have my word. Her word wasn't what the cemetery wanted. As we rounded the north fence, a lantern kindled out in the trees, a small sun cupped in a hand. The light bobbed, patient. The instinct to look up was a magnet pulling at the iron filings in my spine. Eyes down, I said, do not meet it. I could feel her attention trying to climb her face like heat rises. The snow crunched loud as snapping bones. Behind us something knocked on stone. Once, twice, 3 times. We didn't answer. The cemetery didn't like that. We entered row N like stepping into a mouth. The wind died between those stones, and the cold went from claws to hands not ripping but deliberate. Pine resin hung thick as syrup. The girl no names kept pace beside me, grocery bag pressed to her ribs, notebook under her arm, breath blooming and dissolving. You work here every night? She asked. Voice a notch too loud. Just this winter. You believe in the rules. I believe in consequences. We passed a family plot where the snow mounded into smooth backs. The lantern light at the fence drifted parallel to us, not closing the distance, content to be horizon. In a place like this, horizons can be closer than your pulse. She stopped suddenly and pointed. Row N, plot 42. A plain granite marker with a last name the town would recognize and a first name I refused to think. The date was recent enough that the grass hadn't fully knitted together before the ground froze. The dirt was a shallow breath. She set the grocery bag down, pulled out a tea light, and set it in the snow. Then another, then another. The little flames made a soft ring, and the heat smelled like cheap wax and a burning dollar bill. She placed the notebook on the stone as gently as you lay a sleeping baby in a crib. What are you going to do? I asked. Listen, she said. He talked to me last night. That's why I came. I heard him in the static when the TV lost its signal. She didn't see me flinch at the echo of Rule 2. He asked for me by name. He said he wasn't all the way gone yet. Across the lot, the chapel TV shifted channels unaided more nights than not. It was miles of wire away now, quiet. The dead borrow the shapes we offer them. Snow, glass, a voice on a line. My job was to limit the shapes available. No names, I reminded her. She nodded. She knelt. She put 2 fingers to the granite the way you test the temperature on a skillet. The skin of her glove hissed faintly against the cold. You can talk without using names, I said. Say what you'd say to a stranger on a bench. She breathed, slow and measured, like a swimmer before a dive. Then she spoke nothing dramatic, just the small things, exactly as if the person listening could still be tired or bored or soothed. She told the stone about a cracked cup in the kitchen, the way the house sounded once she took the snow shovel off the porch, the funny thing the cashier said about a gallon of milk. Mundane details threaded through with something rower. She apologized for not being there the morning everything went wrong. She said she'd brought a notebook because there were things she needed to write down, and if he could push at her hand the way he pushed at the weather, she'd take the words. The snow around us tightened its grip. The ground gets quiet when it's listening. At 3:03 a.m., a sound moved through the earth like a cough through a wall. The candles flattened and flared. The granite under her fingers trembled once like a muscle about to spasm. Don't say his, I started. She didn't. Thank God she didn't. She spoke like a stranger on a bench. I heard you, she said. Last night. If you can hear me, do it again. Silence. Then a slow scrape under the frozen crust, like someone touching the underside of a table, dragging a knuckle along wood grain. The sound ran from the base of the stone to the little ring of candles. Every hair on my arms lifted, which is ridiculous under 3 layers of clothing and a coat older than I am. Her breath hitched once. "Okay," she said, "okay." Behind us, the lantern out beyond the fence sank lower, making itself look smaller, safer. That is a trick. Big predators learn to seem inconvenient rather than lethal. "Your boots," I said, and she kept her gaze down. The scrape came again, closer this time, and then 3 knocks rose through the earth. The same patient rhythm I'd heard that first night, like a visitor standing on the porch who knows you're inside. She pressed her palm to the stone and knocked back once, a light courtesy tap, a reflex that made my mouth dry. The cemetery stiffened. "You have to let them have the last word." I said, "That's the rule." Her jaw clenched. "He asked for me last night." She didn't say in what voice. She didn't have to. The dead borrow. They borrow and then they keep. The chapel, a dark hump across the lot, hummed in my molars the way refrigerators do when you're trying to sleep. The TV was on channel 7. I had checked, the volume set at 12 little lumps. I pictured the snow piled against the door, the radiator pipes clicking like teeth. Every rule is a weight on a scale. Move one, the whole balance shifts. She took the notebook and set it open on her knees, pen poised. "If you can, push," she said, "just enough to make my hand move." Her hand moved. Not much a fraction, a shadow, but enough that her pen made a mark where her knuckles weren't trying. The mark was a wavering line, a pulse flattened onto paper. She stifled a sob the way people do in hospital elevators. "Stop," I said. "You got your proof. Proof isn't the point." "What is?" "Direction." Her eyes glistened, but she wasn't crying, not yet. "I need to know where he is." I understood then, not whether he was there, in the ground. In the wires, in the places you might rescue someone from if you don't mind what comes back with them. The scrape traveled from the stone to the edges of our ring and then up into the air we were using. The cold shifted flavors, less metal, more damp cloth. Somewhere distant, a plow blade threw sparks. The lantern light beyond the fence bobbed as if nodding approval. At 3:09, footsteps walked up behind us in soft, deliberate crunches. My own voice said, "Hey." From the path we'd taken in, Rule 6 is written in plain English for a reason. If you hear your voice outside the office door, don't open it. The world doesn't care if there's no door and you're not in the office. Rules travel like rumors. "Don't turn around," I said. The steps circled to our right as if pacing. My voice said, "You forgot the ledger." The girl's shoulders stiffened. "I've never been in your office," she said, which made me like her. "Look at your boots." I told her, and I tried not to listen to the way my voice's mouth breathed when it was that close to my ear. At 3:10, the candles went out all at once, like an unseen hand pinched each wick. Darkness pressed in. The lantern beyond the fence swelled brighter, and my voice said, softly, intimately, "Say his name." Her breath frosted slow. "No, say his name," it coaxed, "so I can take it to him. Names are handles. My name on the ledger is a hook in a wall." Hers would be rope. "Look at your boots," I said again, but my voice's hand, if it had a hand, touched her shoulder with warmth, exactly like human warmth. She flinched. I stepped between her and where it should have been and felt the air resist like I was pushing against gel. "Get back to the chapel," I said without turning. "Keep channel 7 on. Don't stop until you see my flashlight." "What about you?" "I made a bargain when I took the keys," I said. Which was only partly true. The rest was what the job makes of you. "Go." She went, feet careful and fast, circle of breath shining like an ornament. The steps behind me paced the ring, bearing my weight, wearing my boots. I stared at my own boot tips until my vision crawled. The cold sneaked up through my socks like a gentle flood. At 3:12, the knocks came again, not a request now, but a pattern, a sequence. It took a beat to realize I knew it. Morse code. I learned Morse from my brother when we were kids. Knocking on bunk beds in the summer heat because we weren't supposed to talk after lights out. The cemetery is a collector. It hoards what hurts. The knocks spelled my name. I did not answer. They spelled the girls. I did not answer that either. They spelled something else then, 3 letters that made the skin at the back of my neck ache. I held my tongue with my teeth. Let us out, my voice said kindly. You've been so good, staying late when you didn't have to. Keeping the ledger neat, be better, open the gate, we can go home. There are moments when the world tips and all your weight slides toward what you want. I pictured warmth, a road without headlights that drift sideways, a kitchen where coffee doesn't taste like sorrow. I pictured my brother without all that hospital in him. At 3:13 the naming window closed, the weight slid back, the lantern beyond the fence extinguished like a breath taken back. And then the chapel TV changed channels. I felt it in my bones before the sound reached me. The garden variety snow of Channel 7 flipped to a low, watery thrum that vibrated the air. Not tonight, I whispered, and the thrum continued. The rules do not care what you whisper. If you're not there to say it to the screen, it does not count. I ran. The chapel door was swollen with cold. The handle bit my palm through glove leather. Inside, the heater ticked like a big bug. The TV the parish had donated in 1998 squatted on its rolling cart, screen filling the room with a low-lit aquarium glow. Channel 1 snow. Channel 7 the cemetery gate, live somehow as if the TV had grown an eye. The image wasn't crisp. It wavered between scan lines like the gate was underwater. Beyond the bars, County Road 7 shone with ice, the far gas pump hunched in the dark like a pilgrim. The gate chain sagged as if tugged from the far side. The girl stood 6 pews back, arms tight around herself, face glowing TV blue. She didn't look away from the screen when I entered. I didn't touch anything, she said. I know. On the TV, a shape moved where the road should be empty at this hour. Lantern light bobbed toward the gate, then stilled, then rose as if lifted high for us to see. Under it a face. It was a good face. That was the wrongness, not skull bare or rotten. Clean-shaven, winter-chapped, eyes exactly like any you'd meet in line at the co-op. He'd have looked at home in a baseball cap, hauling firewood, asking if you needed help with your spare. He was not her brother. That was mercy. Smiled like he loved us. His teeth were regular as piano keys. Don't look at his eyes, I said. She did anyway. People always do. On the screen, his mouth moved. There was no sound, just the soup thrum of the channel itself. He said something, then he said it again, then a third time as steady as a metronome. The girl lifted a hand toward the TV as if she could feel heat off it. What is he saying? She whispered. He's saying, let me in. She shook her head. Tears standing in her eyes now without falling. That's not his voice. Voices are costumes. I stepped forward and clicked the TV's front buttons with numbed fingers, cycling back to Channel 7 where it belonged. The image stayed on the gate. The gate stayed on the request. The face leaned close to the lens, eyes 2 more screens. The chapel's old speakers burped static and then found a frequency. Say his name, the voice said. Perfectly indifferent to what any brother of any person would say. Say his name and I'll let you both pass. The girl's mouth opened. Rule 3 hulked between us like a third person. Don't, I said, don't give this place a handle. She folded in on herself without collapsing. I just want to know where he is. The face on the screen twitched, little glitches like fish under a sheet of ice. He is home, it said. Everyone is home. Let me in and see. I've learned not to argue theology with snow. I walked to the rolling cart, reached behind the TV, and put my hand on the power strip switch. The chapel darkened as if all the candles had been offended. The TV's image faltered, then sharpened. The face multiplied for a second, 3 faces, 5, 9, then resolved back into 1. Don't. The screen said with my brother's voice, the one he had before chemo rasped it down to wire. Please don't. My hand jerked as if I'd touched a socket. The screen knew the private places in me and had no shame about using them. The girl looked at me and saw it too. "You lost someone," she said gently, as if this might change the math. The chapel held our breath between us like glass holds a flower for a time. I reached for the switch again. I had to say the words out loud, the rules require it. "Not tonight," I told the screen. The TV did not obey. The chapel door behind us thumped once as if something had tested the wood with a knuckle. The heater sighed out a long breath. Somewhere under the floor, a drain gurgled. The screen's face smiled wider, then wider still, features spreading like butter warming on bread. "I'll make you a bargain," it said in my voice. "Say her name and I'll bring him to the gate." Her eyes cut to me. "Is that how it works?" "That's how it works." She closed her eyes. I watched her decide whether to trade what she had left for what she wanted. Maybe 10 seconds passed, maybe less. Then she opened her eyes and shook her head. "No," she told the screen. "You can't have us." The TV flickered, anger like heat ripples. The chapel resonated with a frequency that made my fillings ache. On the screen, the gate chain tightened itself like a belt and snapped. The bars parted just enough for a person to slip through sideways. Beyond them, the far gas pump flared white as dawn, only there was no dawn yet. The screen looked at us the way a cat looks at a moving dot. "Then I'll come in," it said sweetly. "Not tonight," I said. And through the switch, darkness swallowed the chapel. The heater died with a final click. The TV's afterimage burned our retinas. Bars, chain, face then went out. The room didn't breathe for a count of 5. Outside, something started walking from the gate toward the chapel. You can tell by the pauses. The dead don't get winded. They stop because they like how it makes us listen. I forced the breaker panel open behind the altar, the one Jim had taped with a nail, and flipped the main. The chapel lights stuttered to life, then steadied. The TV stayed dead. The heater shuddered awake and clanked. The steps reached the porch. I lifted the old snow shovel from beside the door and set its blade against the floor. "Behind me," I said to the girl. "Hands on the pew and keep your eyes on the knot in the wood." The doorknob turned without the latch clicking. The door swelled again, then eased. The air got colder without moving. I stepped forward and set the shovel's handle under the knob like a bar. The wood hummed. The shovel vibrated in my grip, a tuning fork finding its note. It pushed. I leaned. I thought of the ledger and the knocks and my brother teaching me that a long dash is just a long knock. "If you open that door," I said to no one in particular, "this place gets to keep our names." The pressure eased. Then came one last knock, perfectly polite, from eye level on the other side of the wood. I didn't answer. The shovel stopped humming. The cold stayed. We waited. The far gas pump out on County Road 7 caught the first pale smear of actual morning. The TV, still dark, showed me a reflection of 2 people who'd almost been doors. By 9, the plow guy had chewed a lane through the lot, and the sky had gone the color of old porcelain. The girl stood at row N, plot 42, with her notebook closed and the grocery bag of candles back under her arm. She looked wrung out rather than broken. "Is the best a place like this lets you get." "Thank you," she said, and the word felt heavier than it should under open sky. She didn't try to hug me. People who have seen their own names dangled over a well don't touch much after. "Come back in the spring," I told her. "The ground will be softer. The world hears better when it isn't braced against freezing." She nodded. "I don't think he's in there," she said, chin at the stone. "Not all the way. Probably not." "Where then?" "Close," I said, "and that's the danger." She left before anyone asked questions. The truck took the curve out of the lot and didn't drift sideways this time. I watched it go and then went to the office, where the ledger waited in the bottom drawer like a sleeping dog. I pulled it out at 1:20 p.m. to add a note I shouldn't have the authority to add. Visitors at night are not to be admitted, even if they have a copy of the rules, especially then. I replaced the drawer at 1:40. The building did not line. The world stayed put. I made the rounds at dusk and paused at the old stone where I'd first knocked. I did not knock again. You don't feed strays that can learn your schedule. In the chapel, I set the TV to channel 7 and the volume to 12 and sat a while with the heater's song. I thought about how cleverly the dead had borrowed the shape of my brother to hang a hook in me. Here's the lesson that doesn't make a good thumbnail. The rules won't save you because you believe in them. They'll save you because you practice them when you don't believe. Most nights you're keeping the shape of the world out of habit. The one night you need it, habit is the only thing with hands fast enough. Near midnight, a lantern bloomed beyond the north fence. I looked at my boots. The snow squealed in the pines. Knuckles tapped beneath the old section 3 times, patient as a bill collector. I locked the office, shut the lights, and sat with my thermos until the first light touched the far gas pump across County Road 7. The clock in the office said 6:51. The pump said day. I did not argue with the pump. At sunrise, I tore my copy of the rules from its nail and made a new last line with a pen that didn't feel sharp enough for the job. When you want something back, this place will offer you a door. It is never the door you think. If you've ever worked nights in a place that keeps its own hours, a hospital, a lighthouse, an empty mall, and you've heard your name called by something that wasn't there, I want to hear it. Drop your story in the comments. If you want more true night tales from far-off corners like County Road 7, hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell so the next one finds you before the dark does.